How's it going, guys? We got another video here today, and I'm going to be starting this video off where I left off on the previous video. This is based off of Bill Cooper's number 324 broadcast called The Second Coming of Jesus. Really, he's indicating that Jesus has already came, and the concept of a third coming and a third temple and the modern state of Israel is a fallacy, which is merely being used to make us believe that our Messiah is coming back when these prophecies have actually been fulfilled 2,000 years ago. Now, we have in the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 3, I went over this in my previous video, but I did not mention, as Bill Cooper pointed out, that the word used for world here is actually aeon. So they asked Jesus a question, and they said, "What shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world?" Now, when most people read this, they think the end of the world as if the entire world would be destroyed and cease to exist. That's one's thinking. And a lot of people don't believe this prophecy has been fulfilled because they expect the entire world to be demolished, but that's not necessarily the case. If we go to Strong's Concordance for this specific word, world, in the book of Matthew 24 verse 3, it states that the word means aeon, properly an age, or a messianic period. So this is a period of time until a end of a period of time. Not necessarily the end of the world, or that the entire world is going to cease to exist. Now, an age is generally 2,000 years, and you'll start to understand why the new age, at least what we go by today, I know some people argue when it began and when it didn't, but our current age began at 1 AD, which is 1 after death. So even today, in our secular society, we accept that our age began at the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Yet they are using old prophecies and they are making it seem as if this has not happened yet, using old prophecies to justify that he's coming this age, which is creeping upon us right now, because it's been 2,000 years after Jesus died and resurrected. So you have to understand that we were previously, or currently actually, in the age of Pisces, but very shortly, within 100 years, we will be ushering into the age of Aquarius. And that's why this massive social cataclysm is happening right now. But they have it under the guise of Christ consciousness, sort of like Alice Bailey, who is the successor of Madame Blavatsky. You know, they teach in the reappearance of the Christ and Christ consciousness. You even have some early church fathers claim that Plato was Christian, even though he lived 400 or 500 years before Jesus even surfaced the earth. It's because it is a Gnostic ideology of Christ consciousness, and this is the New Age religion that we're headed into. And a lot of Christians are being duped into it. They believe in the 1948 Israel. They believe in the Third Temple. They believe that Jesus still has to come to fulfill some prophecy, which is what we're actually going to get into right now. Another verse which is highly misrepresented is the book of Matthew chapter 24 verse 15. It states, "When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth let him understand." So this is Jesus, and he speaks of the abomination of desolation by Daniel the prophet. Well, when you look for this specific verse, he has to be speaking about Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, when he states that he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Okay, so this is speaking of the Messiah is going to come. He's going to cause animal sacrifices to cease, and he will make it desolate. So Jesus is the desolator. Well, Jesus is telling them in Matthew 24, remember, he's answering the same question. What will be the sign of the end of the world? What will be the sign of the end of the age? He is claiming that when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel in the holy place. So he is saying these things are coming. And at the end, as we will follow up this video as always in verse 33 and 34, he states, Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. So he said all these things will pass. Do not use the book of Daniel, chapter 9, verse 27, and then tell me that this is referring to something in the future that hasn't happened yet. Do not do that, because you're not only lying to yourself, but you're creating an entire new religion. And unfortunately, this has been happening for a long time. From what I've discovered, this has been happening from the very moment Jesus ascended. This has been happening. These religions of waiting on his reappearance. And we have to stop this and grasp the true understanding. So in your Bibles, you will not find the term 7-year tribulation, and you will not find the word rapture. If you try to find it in the Bible, it'll refer you to Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. Okay, and they're claiming that this prophecy has yet to be fulfilled, even though Jesus had came in the temple, had caused animal sacrifices to cease to exist, and had been persecuted for it. And that's really what Daniel chapter 9 verse 27 is about, is the abominations of desolations, and Jesus claimed that title in Matthew chapter 24 verse 15. And he said this before he even went in the temple and did that. He was warning them, I'm about to fulfill this act. I am the Messiah, and I'm going to fulfill my role. Okay, so also you have in the book of Jeremiah chapter 7 verse 22, he says, For I spake not unto your fathers, nor commanded them in that day that I brought them out of the land of Egypt, concerning burnt offerings or sacrifices. So this is Old Testament. This is before Jesus. And he's stating that I did not speak to your fathers or ancestors about animal sacrifices before I brought them out of the land of Egypt. They came out of Egypt with these traditions, okay? And that's not the only place they were taken captive. They were also taken captive in the Babylonian captivity. And that's what I'm going to go over a little bit here, because it's important we understand how these oral laws and animal sacrifices can get creeped in to the Old Testament, etc. So we have the Yahweh's text, which is the very beginning of the Torah. It's actually the book of Genesis and the Torah. And if you actually study the origin of our current Torah, how it is currently formatted, you would actually come to find out that it was created during the Babylonian captivity. At least this is what most scholars agree on, and primarily because they use the word Yahweh in Genesis. Now, Yahweh wasn't given until Moses in Exodus. That was the name of God given to Moses, allegedly given to Moses in the book of Exodus, but it was used in the book of Genesis. Also, from the Yahweh's text, the way the language was used, they can determine which era it derived from. So most scholars agree that the Torah that we have today was actually created during the Babylonian captivity. Now this would be after Judah had been divorced from God and sent into captivity along with Israel as well. Now, we're also going to find in the Apocrypha of 2nd Ezra chapter 14, which will also concur with this viewpoint. It states in verse 21, "For thy law is burnt, therefore no man knoweth the things that are done of thee, or the work that shall begin." So in the Apocrypha of Ezra, it's saying that the law is burnt and no man knoweth any things from the beginning of time. Now, if we just scroll down to verse 39, it states, "And then the next day, behold, a voice called me, saying, Esdras, open up thy mouth and drink that drink I give to thee. Then I opened up my mouth, and behold, he reached me a full cup, which was full as it were with water, but the color of it was like fire. And I took it and drank, and when I drank of it, my heart uttered understanding, and wisdom grew in my breast, for my spirit strengthened in memory, and my mouth was open and shut no more. And the highest gave understanding unto the 5 men, and they wrote the wonderful visions of the night, and they were told, which they knew not. And they sat 40 days, and they wrote in the day and in the night, and they ate bread." Okay. And it states in 40 days they wrote 204 books. Okay. So I'm trying to explain sort of what we're dealing with when we're speaking of the Old Testament. I'm not implying that the entire Old Testament is irrelevant. And this is specifically speaking of the Torah. Keep that in mind. So really it's good to have a proper understanding of how the Torah was written, when it was created, and who created it, and what type of mindset did they have when it was created. Because I'll be honest with you, I believe there's a lot of things in the Old Testament that are contradicts the will of God. And in fact, when Jesus was asked how to get into heaven, he merely quoted 2 commandments. You know, the Pharisees were telling Jesus to wash his hands and doing the tradition of the elders, and they were bickering at him over every law and every little thing. The reason is they follow 613 oral laws. Mishnah, oral laws, sort of a form of the Talmud before it existed. And these laws prevailed over the simple 10 commandments. In fact, I would argue that the 10 commandments manifested into 613 laws, most created by men. Okay? I believe that the law of God is the 10 commandments given to Moses by God himself. And when they asked Jesus, you know, how do I get into heaven? He quoted 2 of the 10 commandments. He did not quote any of the 613 oral laws. Clearly and obviously would not mention animal sacrifice. So the question is truth objective? I believe truth is objective. I believe the religion Jesus brought essentially has always been the truth, not taking away the salvation he brought me and the prophecies that he had to fulfill. So I didn't mean to get off track there, but just a little bit of food for thought. I really want people to have an understanding on why the Old Testament and the New Testament seems to contradict each other. You know, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, turns into turn the other cheek, etc. And these are the reasons why. Now I'm going to finish up the video once again with the book of Matthew chapter 16 verse 28. Verily I say to you, there will be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming into his kingdom. You know, some of them were still going to be alive when the Son of Man came into his kingdom by the end of that age, during that generation. And that's exactly what he fulfilled, and that's exactly what happened. Now, a lot of people ask, well, what about the resurrected bodies? You know, wouldn't everybody be resurrected if this is the case? Don't we have to wait on him to come back and harvest us? Well, in the book of Matthew, once again, shortly after, chapter 27, verse 52, it states, And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose, and came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city, and appeared unto many. So after reading all of this and adding these verses up together, how could one claim that our Messiah has not came already and had not fulfilled all of the Old Testament prophecies and everything he spoke of on this earth as well? He had fulfilled every one of them. There's the Holy Spirit was the last thing the apostles were waiting on, the gift from the Father. It was the last thing we were waiting on. And unfortunately, that wasn't enough for a lot of people. They went back to their old messianic ways, expecting on a Christ return, expecting some fabulous materialistic change, something physical, something they can see and observe and interact with. The Spirit was not good enough for them. Anyways, guys, I'm going to end the video right here, but I do plan on making at least 1 or 2 more videos specifically on this topic. That way I can feel satisfied that I gathered everything that you need to know. Because this isn't a very important subject considering we are coming upon the new age, and this is what Bill Cooper was extremely worried about and well aware of. And unfortunately, just about everybody is brainwashed into supporting this, and even though they know something is wrong, they don't really know exactly what that is. Therefore, they don't know how to fight it. They're sort of like Bill Cooper said, if you don't know your enemy and the weapons they use, you should not even be on the battlefield. Anyways, guys, I hope you liked the video. Tell me what you think about it. Comment, rate, subscribe, and have a good day.